Hundreds of earthquakes have been rattling Mount Rainier over the last 2 days. This is the largest swarm since 2009.
Reporter Lauren Donovan spoke with seismologists at the Cascades Volcano Observatory about what's actually going on.
I called the USGS Tuesday looking for some more information. I spoke with Wes Thielen. He's a seismologist there, and he said, hey, hold up. There could be some more activity, more quakes overnight. And sure enough, Wednesday, we woke up to that. So Wes is joining us now via Zoom. Wes, what are we tracking right now?
A swarm of earthquakes started at Mount Rainier, and a swarm of earthquakes are a grouping of earthquakes that are happening in the same space in close together in time. And so we had an increase in activity, in seismic activity, up to about 26 events an hour, which is a pretty good event rate for a quiet volcano. And since then, it's tailed off. It is the largest swarm since 2009 at Mount Rainier. These things at Mount Rainier we have seen before, and we expect to see them again in the future. As far as the future of this swarm, the swarm in 2009 lasted about 3 days. This swarm may last that long. It may actually intensify again. You know, we don't necessarily have a crystal ball to understand what it is that is happening under there. I should make a quick note. I just got a message that there was a magnitude 2.3 a little bit ago. We believe that this is most likely hot fluids that are running through pre-existing faults. You know, it is over the long term building toward the next eruption. We don't know when that is, and we need to look at
But you know, like, everybody is always saying, like, we are due for one at Rainier, right? And they cite that figure. It's been over 1,000 years. But set us straight. Is that just mythology, or is that something that you all actually believe at USGS?
I mean, you know, we don't. The thing about volcanoes, and we're getting a better understanding of this as our age dating gets better, and what we know based on other studies at Rainier and studies at other volcanoes is that a lot of times, yes, there is like if you divide the number of eruptions by some amount of time, then you have some like average period between eruptions. What we see in the geologic record is that these volcanoes occur in cycles, and so a lot of these eruptions will be confined to cycles where they're very active through time, and then it's very quiet between. So even though it's 1,000 years ago, Rainier overall is not in a particularly active time period when you look over the course of the last, say, 10,000 years.
So a swarm isn't necessarily anything to lose sleep about, but it is keying us into habits of Mount Rainier that could perhaps better prepare us for incidents in the future.
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, swarms often occur before volcanic eruptions, but not every swarm leads to an eruption. And so there are specific things that we would expect to see this swarm trend into that would indicate that something else was happening under the volcano beyond what our current interpretation is.
What about Mount Rainier, Tahoma, is it that gets people so riled up? Obviously, a lot of excitement over this news, a lot of concern. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so, you know, I think Mount Rainier, it just dominates the skyline, and it dominates the skyline whether you're in Seattle, you know, Tacoma. I think that, you know, you drive around and it's this like, oh, is the mountain out? And so I think within just people's everyday life, you know, they are reminded that there's this volcano there.
So meteorologist Claire Anderson joining us now. That seismologist talked about the swarm in 2009.
Yeah.
I don't recall hearing them a lot about them, but have there been others since then?
Yeah, there was actually a swarm in 2017, and the reason we're saying 2009 is because that's when there were hundreds of them. Now, in 2017, there was a similar swarm, but just not quite hundreds. We're talking more dozens, and similar in the largest size. About 2.3 has been the largest size of the quakes. So a lot of these have been so small you can't actually feel it or or see it. And again, these are very normal conditions, normal ranges. We have hundreds of small quakes, these swarms. We have about 1 to 2 a year, and we can have about 9 earthquakes per month. So again, nothing to worry about right now, but I think it's a big talker right now.
Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of set the record straight. I know you're getting a lot of questions from people saying, what does this mean? So, yeah, thank you for that insight. Appreciate it.